over the years, many people have come to me wanting to have some healing for a lot of pain that's going on within them. And this healing can take place if I just play my own role. Now, I do not have to necessarily play the role of the person who contributed to the pain. And very often I will start by saying to people, I think we can heal from this situation if you can tell me what's alive in you now as a result of what happened in the past. Let's just talk about what's alive now. Maybe it was stimulated by something that somebody did in the past. But just tell me now, what is alive in you now? And if the person is very depressed, they usually don't know how to tell me really what's alive in them now as we define that term in nonviolent communication. That what is alive in you now is what are you feeling and what are you needing? Most people who I find are very depressed do not know how to express and stay connected to their feelings and needs. They feel their depression because of how they think about themselves. And they think about themselves this way not because they have an illness called depression, but because they have been educated to think about themselves in a way that creates depression. For example, very often when somebody who's very depressed comes to me and wants to get out of this depression, I ask them this question to get started. What needs of yours are not being met right now in your life? And when the person's very depressed, they very seldom tell me what their needs are that aren't getting met. They usually give me a diagnosis of themselves. They'll say something to me like, I'm a failure. I look at my brothers and sisters and I see all they've accomplished in life, and I compare myself to them and I see what a failure I am. Or other people tell me, I'm a terrible mother. Or others tell me, I'm too sensitive. All I know is that I get hurt no matter what somebody says. What's wrong with me? I'm so sensitive. So notice I've asked these people what their needs are, but they don't tell me their needs. But they're very literate at telling me what they think about themselves, and what they think about themselves in a way that implies there is something wrong with them. And that's the kind of thinking that I believe contributes to depression. And what I do with such people, I help them to identify these judgments and help them to see that all of these judgments that we make of ourselves that stimulate depression are simply expressions of unmet needs. We have needs in our life that we're not meeting to our satisfaction, but we haven't been educated to think in terms of what's alive in us, what we're feeling, what we're needing. We've been educated to think of what we are. So I help the people to see that if we can recognize these thoughts when we're having them and translate them into unmet needs, we'll live in a different world. We'll no longer be depressed. Now, we may be frustrated, we may be sad, discouraged, but not this painful feeling of depression that comes from the thinking that implies there's something wrong with us. One of the judgments that I find that people very often have when they are terribly depressed, they judge themselves as poor parents. And I teasingly tell people, if you want to know how to get really depressed in life, have children and think there is such a thing as a good parent. Parents really laugh when I say that because they really know what I mean. They know that this precious job of parenting, this precious opportunity to bring people into this world and prepare them for the world, it's a precious job. But if we have been educated to think of ourselves in a moralistic, judgmental way, we can take that job and turn it into something miserable, because any time things aren't going well between our children and ourselves and we start thinking, I'm a terrible parent, What's wrong with me? I should know better. We're going to be depressed a good deal of the time. So when I'm working with such people, I help them to first of all recognize that the depression is a good signal that tells us we're thinking in a way that's not good for our well-being or the people around us. But don't judge yourself negatively for having that thinking. That'll just perpetuate the problem. Just see the thinking. See what you're telling yourself and how that makes you feel depressed. So if you see that you're depressed because you're telling yourself you're such a terrible parent, be conscious that all of those judgments that have that effect on us are really valuable messages if we hear the truth. To hear that what they really are trying to say is, hey, a need of mine is not getting met by what I'm doing. For example, with my children, my need to contribute to their well-being is strong in me, but I can see that it's not happening. I can see that the way I'm talking to them when I'm upset is not meeting my need to contribute to their well-being. Now, seeing it that way, I might feel frustrated, I might feel sad, but those are quite different feelings than depression, that feeling that comes when I'm blaming and judging myself. So, in healing work that I do, a very important part of it is to help people to become conscious that these judgments that they're telling themselves that create their misery contain this valuable information if we can hear the needs of theirs that are not getting met.